All right, so here's Module 3, review number 1 for the test. So looking at this first graph here, we need to find the minimum. So remember, with minimum, you need to give its x value and its y value because we're trying to find the location on the graph. Well, here's the minimum. That x value is right here, and if I count, that's 1, 2, 3. And then that y value is a -3. So when I write this, it's 3, -3. When I'm trying to figure out the maximum, same thing, it's a location, x comma y. So my maximum is the toppest part of my graph, which is right there in pink. -5 is that x value, and 8 is that y value. So -5, 8. And these, we use round brackets because round brackets also help us to identify locations. All right, now we're going to talk about increase and decrease. So increase, remember, is when it's going up from left to right, and we use the x-axis. So on our graph here, we're going up from this point to that point. So that x value is 3, and that other x value is 15. So we will go from 3 to 15, and those are closed brackets because 3 is part of the line, 15 is a closed dot. Decreasing, our graph starts decreasing from here to here. So that x value that you start with is -5, and we end here at 3, -5 to 3. Because remember, decreasing, we use the x-axis, it's when we're going down from left to right. Domain is all of left to right using the x-axis. So our domain on the leftist x is -5, the rightist x is 15. And these are both closed dots, so we use closed brackets. Range is when we use the y-axis from bottom to top. So the bottomest part of our graph is right here, and that y value is -3. The toppest part of our graph is right here, and that y value is 8. So we go from -3 to 8. Close bracket for the -3 because it's part of the line. Close bracket for the 8 because it's a closed dot. All right, let's erase all this so we can see our intercepts. Okay, so our x-intercept is where our graph passes the x-axis. So our graph passes the x-axis here and here, right? That's the x-axis. So between -1 and -2 is a -1.5, and between 12 and 13 is about 12.5. So those are our x-intercepts. Y-intercepts are when our graph passes through the y-axis. So our y-axis is the up and down line. Here's where it passes through, and that's about a -1. Looking at number 2. Minimum point, remember, we're given a location. So our minimum's right here. That x value is 0, and the y value is that -3. Our maximum is none. Why? Because there's arrows, and you cannot locate arrows, right? This is the toppest part of our graph, and we got arrows. We can't locate those, so there's no maximum. Our graph is increasing, starting at what I've drawn in orange here. So from left to right, well, that x value is 0, ends in an arrow on the right side, so that's positive infinity. Square bracket for the 0 because it's part of the line. Infinities always get round brackets. Our graph starts decreasing on the left. We have an arrow, so that's negative infinity because it's on the left, and it goes all the way until 0 on the x-axis. So round bracket for the negative infinity, square bracket for the 0. Domain, leftist and rightist. Well, the leftist side we have an arrow, and the rightist side we have an arrow. So this goes from negative infinity to infinity. Our range is bottom to top. So at the bottom we have a -3, and at the top we got arrows. So our range goes from -3 to infinity. Round bracket for the infinity, square bracket for the -3 because it's part of the line. All right, x-intercepts, let's erase this. So x-intercepts, remember, are the x-axis. So our graph passes through at the x-axis here and here, and that's a -3 and 3. Lastly, our y-intercepts happen on the y-axis. And our y-axis, the only time it passes through is right here, and that's a -3. Lots of -3's in this one. All right, looking at the next one here, number 3, what's the domain of this? Well, the leftist side, we got a -4. The rightist side, we got a 3. And we use closed brackets because they're closed dots. Next up, we have to find the following values. Remember, if we have to do that, remember f of x equals y. Well, in this case, we are given x's and we need to find y's, right? Because the x's are inside the parentheses. So for this first one here, we find -3 on our x-axis. And if we want to find y's, that means we need to go up or down if we're given x's. Because remember, y values are up and down, so we need to go up or down to find them. So my graph is above me, so I'm going to go up, and that y value is 2. The next one here is 0. So my x value is 0. I go down on my graph to find my y value, which is -1. Again, we go up or down because the y values are up and down. Next one, we have a 1 for our x. So here's 1. On the graph, that y value is a 0. Next up, we have a -1.5. -1.5 is about right here. And if I go straight up, hit the graph, that is in between 1 and 2. So about 1.5 is that y value. Okay, next up, now we are given y's, and we need to find x's. So this means that we have to go left or right to figure out our x's, because x's are on the x-axis, and the x-axis goes left and right? That's the x value that I just wrote in blue here. That's the x-axis. So that's why we have to go left or right from that y value. So for example, in number 3, letter A, we have 3. So 3 on our y-axis is here. My graph is to the left of us, so I go to the left, and I hit there. That x value is a -2. See how I went left, and then I found an x value on the x-axis of -2? Next up, we have 0. So our y value is 0. So we have to go left or right. Well, in this case, our graph actually touches twice. It touches at -1 and it touches at 1. So we have 2 answers there. Last one, I'm trying not to use the same colors. We have a -1 for our x value. For our y value. So here's -1. It touches right here. It's already there for us. So that x value is a 0. All right. So what's the minimum of the graph? So let me erase all of this. Remember, the minimum is the lowest point, right? Well, we got 2 lowest points, and we have to give the locations of them. So this first one, that y value is a -1, and the x value is a 0. For this other value, our y value is a -1, but our x is a 3. So we have 3 -1s. So we have actually 2 minimums here. The maximum is the toppest, and again, it's a location, so we're looking for the toppest. Well, here's our toppest. That x value is a -2, that y value is a 3. So we got -2, 3. Where is our graph increasing? Well, it's increasing here, and it increases here. So that interval is -4 to -2, closed brackets. And then we have 0, 1. All right, next up we have to list our intercepts. So we have x-intercepts, which is when it happens on the x-axis. So here's our x-axis. Our graph passes through here at -1 and through here at 1. So we got -1 and 1. Y-intercepts happen on the y-axis. So on our graph at the y-axis, we pass through at -1. All right. Next up, we have more evaluating functions. So again, using that f of x equals y. This is an x value in the 2, so I look for 2 on the x-axis. Go up to find that y, and that y value is 9. Here we're given a y value of 3, so we go to our y on 3. We need to go left or right to find our x. Our graph is to the right, so that x value is a 1. Next up, we have 0, so that 0 is at x, so here's 0 on the x-axis. Go up on my graph, that y value is a 1. All right, more of this. So again, remembering that f of x equals y. We are given in 13 through 16 the x's. So find 2, we got 1, 2. Here's that x value, the y is 0. Now we have an x value of 0, so here's the x value of 0. Drop down, that y value is -1. Here we have an x value of 4, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Our graph is above us, so we go up, and that y value is a 7. All right, in the next one here, our x value is a -3, so we find -3 on our graph. That's -2, -3. Here it is, drop down to our graph, and that y value is a -4. All right, let me erase all of this. So now we need to find our y. So this time we're given y, so our y value of 1 is right here. Go to my graph, and that x value is a 1, 2, 3, and between 2 and 3, about 2.5. We have -2 for the next one, so we got -1, -2. Our graph is to the left of us, and that number is -2 for the x-axis. Next we have 7, so 7 is right here on my y-axis. Go to the graph, drop down to figure out that x value is a 4. Next up we have -9, so -9 is above -10. There's my graph to the left of us, so that x value is -4. Next we have to figure out if the graph is a function or not. So remember, that's when we use a straight up and down line, and we pass through our graph. So going through. Right here, our graph is only, our line is only touching the blue graph once. Here it's only touching once. But here, now, it's touching 3 times. And if it touches more than once, then it is not a function. So we need to write that. It touches more than once. So let's look at another one. Take a straight line up and down. Usually use your pencil, go across. So here we're touching the blue graph once. Here we're touching once. So because we are touching the graph only once the whole time, yes, it is a function. And the reason is it touches only once. 35, same deal. Take a straight up and down line. Drag it across your graph. Oh, see right away in this one, it's not nice. It's touching twice. So it is not a function. And again, that reason is because it touches more than once. And the next one here, straight up and down line, drag it across. Touching once. Once. Sounds like a beat. Touches once the whole time, so it is a function. All right, that's the end of today's video. If you didn't finish in class, show me, and I'll talk to you next time.